There you go.
Call the Personnel and Finance Meeting meeting to order. We have Smith, Citizen Rep, and Co-Chair Commissioner Singleton. I'm Commissioner Isom, Chair. The minutes of March 20th.
Because we did not meet in April.
Did not meet in
Not meet in
April, so no minutes. So it's time for the reports. First, it's a personnel report. Administrator Galladay is not here today, but you can read your monthly Human Resource Department report. It's in the agenda packet. And if you have any questions, you can refer to her or city manager. It's got the city income tax too, which again, Administrator Galladay is not here. But the tax information is in the agenda packet. Look it over. If you have any questions? Any questions, Rhonda? If you have any questions about it, anybody can contact her or the city manager again. Next, we have the financial report. Right.
Okay,
How you doing tonight, Doctor?
very good.
Good.
We're all doing okay?
Okay.
Beautiful up there. isn't it?
Yeah. Doing good.
So we'll keep.
Keep rolling.
Mhm.
Let's talk about some money.
Yeah, well, cash is still very low in the, general fund and utility fund.
Mm-hmm.
However, just to jump down a little bit,
Okay.
we have noticed an increase in the collections.
Has been increased.
Right, in the month of April, collections were around 260,000, of which a lot came in the latter part of the month because of the announcement of the shut-offs. And the first 2 weeks of May, we've already collected $160,000. So that's really on track for what a normal month should look like. It should look like 320, 340,000 a month. So you had some months as low as 100,
Yeah.
120. So we are seeing some pickup in activity, which is really good.
Moving in the right direction.
Right, absolutely. Nothing major in the month of April as far as expenses. In the revenue side, we did recognize $800,000 in the general fund that got transferred in from ARPA that was voted on.
Right.
So that got moved and it was used to pay the bills.
Could you say that one more time? Some people understand why we moved the 800,000.
The 800,000 was moved due to the cash shortage that was created because of utility customers not paying and the impact it had on the general fund. So both funds actually needed an influx of cash to pay the payables and payroll.
Yes,
Commission.
and the opera funds are allow you to do that because one of
Because
the.
we chose to use revenue loss
Right.
as the reason for the ARPA funds, so it doesn't have to be tied to any particular project. It's really, we have to tell the state what we, or not the state, but that's what we used it
Right.
for. But it can be tied to pretty much any expense for operating both the utility fund and the general fund. And that's what it was used for primarily. One thing to mention is that 800,000 was transferred, but 750,116 is all that was left in the ARPA money that the city received. Your total from the feds was 9.8 million and change, and that money has now been exhausted. The difference between the 800 and the 753 is interest that was earned on that account. Because over
Could you
we were able to
repeat that balance one more time on ARPA funds?
of what
Repeat the balance.
the balance of
ARPA, I'm sorry.
the cash balance.
Yeah.
The cash balance right now is 61,233,
Okay.
and that represents the remaining interest
Interest, yeah.
that was earned.
Okay.
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
So of the 800,000, 750,116
Mm-hmm.
is called ARPA funds because that's the balance of what the federal government gave the city.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was another $46,884 that was pulled out of the account, but it was interest that account earned. And typically, now this was the good thing about the ARPA funds, they did change the federal government changed the law. Prior to the ARPA, you could not earn interest on the Fed money. You had to, if you did, you had to pay it back to the federal government.
Mhm.
But they made an exception with the ARPA money, so you earned about 105,000 in interest over time.
Mhm.
So. Project activity is continuing with the state-funded ARPA projects, the water distribution and the water plant activities, and about 1.1 million was spent in the month of April. So that is reimbursed at 100% from the state of Michigan Eagle. Okay.
Okay, yes, could you explain to me, I'm looking at the graph here. Now, on the utility fund and the general fund, the graph is
Not there,
invisible.
it's gone.
It's
Because
so
there
low.
is no available cash at the end of April. Any cash that was in the bank account was owed for bills that hadn't been paid yet. So there basically is no cash.
To operate, oh, so it's still.
Now, as cash comes in, basically we're spending it.
Yeah.
So there is no buildup at this
Uh-huh.
point in time of cash balances. It's not like you have zero and you're always gonna have zero. We're
Mhm.
expecting, there's a local community stabilization act payment that comes in in
Mhm.
May. But by the time you see it at the end of May, you'll probably be back down to zero because you paid all the bills
Oh,
and the
okay.
payroll for the month.
So when you say cash balances in the general fund, utility funds are very low, that's what you're talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
This year, now if you look at move over to the general fund income tax,
Uh-huh.
last year at this time, we had 3.8 million
Mm-hmm.
in that fund, and now you only have 1.8 million. But what you did is you had a $2 million local road program where you spent $2 million of the money in that fund. So that is why the fund is less this year than it was last year. Permanent public improvement has some growth. You get money from property taxes. There's a property tax levy for permanent public improvements. We haven't used much over the last year in that fund, but it can be used for structural or permanent improvements. It may be used if, I believe what we did last year is when the farmer's market, we had to have a match for that grant from USDA. So because it's a permanent public improvement, we could use some of those funds to be a match with that federal money. So, and then the property tax collection fund, that's just the remains of what's in property tax that has to be paid to some other agencies. So that will be paid out. And there's some overpayments that need to be refunded, so.
We'll go to the next slide. This is the revenue expenditures by operating
Yeah,
summer funds, so.
yeah, the general fund, actually, it's in the first three lines,
Mhm.
improved from last month. It was at about $1.2 million
Mhm.
of expenditures over revenue,
Mhm.
and now it's 700. What has happened there is the negative was related to the local road project
Mhm.
that you had going on, and you were using not money that came in this year, but some money that was in reserve
Oh, okay.
in your fund balance from prior years. And it improved because 800,000 was recognized as revenue
Mhm.
in the general fund for those ARPA funds.
Okay.
Whatever fund utilizes the ARPA fund will get the revenue benefit,
Oh, okay,
okay?
good.
Major roads, it also has a net expense
Mhm.
to date. That should be by the end of the year, close to, or less than what it is right now, because we're a little bit behind in MTF, the Michigan Transportation payments, and you
Mhm.
also had a project, I believe it was Papa Avenue,
Okay.
that spent money on, again, with reserves that you had in the prior year. Local roads usually is about break even.
Mhm.
Cemetery, we had set up the budget for the cemetery to be part of the city's fund, and we have not taken over the
Yeah.
cemetery. So it shows up in the budgeted columns, but we
Okay.
don't have any activity that's reflected in the books of the city.
Okay.
CDBG and CDBG coronavirus,
Mhm.
that ends up net zero, because every dollar that's spent in that fund is covered by federal HUD
Okay.
grants. And month to month, you'll see a negative because we haven't received, we spent the money, say, in April, and we
Mhm.
get the reimbursement in May. So
Okay.
until the end of the year, that will show a lag. Utility services has a plus, and again, that's because of the infusion earlier in the year
Okay.
of money for ARPA, from ARPA.
Mhm.
And PPI, pension, some of the grant activity is sitting at a plus, and that's
Mhm.
primarily because you've collected money for permanent public improvement fund, and we haven't spent anything yet this
Okay.
year on that.
And can we just run the next slide just for a second, just to offer, we'll make sure people know what we spent the money on, the different machines and like the wood chipper, street sweeper, we did the public safety cameras. We did the utility assistance is 2.7, right? Utility assistance.
To the residents,
Residents.
2.7 was.
2.7.
Mhm.
And then we did chamber upgrades. So those are the listings right there. So you can go to your agenda packet and see where that opera money was spent on. Time you need to.
And the total you received was the 9,825,764.
I forgot to say too, we had about to complete the budget, right? For the budget ending in this 23-24 budget. Getting close to finishing.
Right, and I will have to, I usually in May go through and estimate, because we have to make sure that all our departments are in line and we don't overspend. I will go through, once we have May actual results, and project what your 23-24 year. It will be your amended budget, should be, so you stay in compliance with the state of Michigan.
You have any questions? Commissioner Henry?
I sure did have a question. Couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, you gave us a schedule of when the budget was gonna be reviewed.
Yes.
And here we are almost in June. And we haven't touched it since we approved it in June of last year. And I need to know, why is it being, untruths are being said about the time frame, and why haven't we touched it since?
Mr. Chairman, I can help with that. The city manager has a principal role in budget, and as I sent out a notice to all of you about what was happening, and don't see any reason to be timid about it. I have been doing contracts, I've been doing all of the stuff that walks through the door that just has to be dealt with when it comes through the door. From the time I come in the morning, and then when everybody leaves, I spend 2 or 3 hours around here at night writing stuff and whatnot. And to be very point blank and simple about it, I just haven't had time to get it all done. I'm still working on it. I'm still doing the meetings. I was in here Sunday night until 8:45. But I am doing my absolute best to see if I can get my part of it done this week, where Rhonda and I can get together and finalize this and have it ready for you as soon as we can. That's all I can say.
Well, I understand, Mr. Little. You got a lot on your plate, and you got 2 or 3 hats on. But that is not acceptable, Chair, because the charter says we should do something. That's law.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been dragging our feet and talking about this process since June of last year. We said we were going to review it in July of last year, and it didn't happen. Every month, there's an excuse for why it's not done. Well, staff needs to give us a breakdown. That happens every year. Why is it such a slow job? And we're dealing with a skeleton crew. If it was a whole lot of 40 or 200 people, I would say that. Something is wrong, and I would like to get a solid date on when we can review this budget from last year. We haven't even touched this year's, and they're telling me that they gotta work on it. I understand that, but we have not touched last year's. It's
Mr.
not
Chairman, if you
acceptable.
would, what does she mean by last year? I
So
don't-
the
I'm
amendment-
talking about
amendment.
2023
Amendment.
and 24 amendment. We have not touched the budget since we touched it June the 31st.
In about 40 days, it'll expire. What do we need to amend it for?
Because there are some things that we as elected officials would like to happen with the money. You cannot determine what we do with the citizens' money. You give us a recommendation, but we should have some input in what is going on. We should have some information that the people's will be done. It don't belong to us.
I would simply recommend that you take a look at the charter and what it says about the budget.
I know what it says about the budget. It says that it belongs to us when you get lucid, but we haven't touched it, Chair, since last year.
Ron, you want to speak?
The budget anyone could suggest amendments to the budget.
Mm-hmm.
40-some pages are given by line item of how the money's being spent
Mhm.
and how it was budgeted by the city commission and the city manager
Mhm.
at the end of last year. So I'd have to do some form of an amendment, whether you go through it or not, or you will be out of compliance if, for instance, the clerk's department's spent $150,000 and we only budgeted $125.
Mhm.
We have to make that adjustment.
Mhm.
Those are the types of adjustments I make
Mhm.
when I present them to you. But if there needs to be changes to the budget, it can happen anytime during the year.
Is that information?
Then why is it been put off and us getting schedule after schedule that never aligns with the schedule? Why is it not being amended? We've been talking about amending this since the day we approved it.
Commissioner Henry, did you send?
Don't you try,
Try what?
because how am I gonna send anything when it's always another date? We're going to amend it on this date. When that date comes, it's another date. Don't try to say that we are not doing our job.
I didn't say we're not.
I'm
I didn't say
saying that we've been looking at this budget since June the 31st of last
Mhm.
year. It was given to us at the very last minute and we had to approve it. And we had some thoughts about it, but it never came back to us to even present our thoughts about it, because it's always another month, another person. Something's wrong with that picture. It's not normal for us to have a budget 3 days before it's due to the state of Michigan, and then we don't never touch it again.
Go ahead.
So the amendment we talking about that's gonna be coming up is after the information come in on what for May, June.
Usually I look at if nobody has submitted or revised the budget,
Mhm.
even if they have, come May, to keep the city in compliance, I have to go through and make sure that you are not overspent in any department.
Right.
To stay in compliance with the Budget Act with the state of Michigan. So that is what the exercise I go through. I don't make changes because I'm not running the city. I don't make changes to
Mhm.
budgets
Mhm.
throughout the year. I only make changes to keep you in compliance.
So to your recollection, did we ask for to look at the budget so it could be amended to fit more of the citizens' need? Or is this something that I'm imagining that happened?
You could recommend Commissioner.
I have, but I'm telling you, and
You
you
sent it
said,
to, who you sent it to? I don't know. Did you send it to Rhonda or?
I didn't send it to anyone. You never gave me the opportunity. You kept changing the dates to amend it. I'm used to procedure. This is not normal procedure, Chair. Since the emergency manager been here, we've been running around like chickens with our head cut off. It don't work unless we work it. And the charter gives us authority to change the priorities of where you spend your money.
Like we have a special meeting, something like that. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I hear sentiments of Mr. Henry. I will say that some of the issues are much deeper than just meetings. I think that we have a case of the inmates running their side. When you have employees have vacation and take days off and are still getting paid on regular payroll instead of getting paid on vacation. Which city managers here, so we can address certain issues. I think that we're top heavy. I think that people are getting paid for doing nothing. I'm watching different behaviors when I come in the building where people are not doing work. They're on cell phones and not doing what they're paid to do. This is government money. This is residents' money. This is money that should be spent wisely. I will say that a lot of times when people are not overseeing, we're paying a lot for a lot. And, you know, one time we had an account, city, whatever it was, and we were still paying somebody else. We had, what was the guy who came from Detroit, we were paying him for gas and everything else. What was
Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams. We're paying him plus paying somebody else for a job that is, per the charter, should be filled. I will say that line items need to be presented. I think that a budget should be presented. Any amendment should be presented. And we should all know what's going on when it comes to city finance. I think that, again, some of these positions that we have upheld because of relationship probably should not be upheld. I think that we should go some other routes that will save us money. If we don't hurry up and do something soon, I think that, and I'm hearing the opera funds that we spent, that we had $900,000 at one point, it's now down to $90,000. And I think that might not be $10,000 off, so there, but it ain't that far off. And then I was looking at the cemetery board meeting, they were promised money from the opera fund. We don't have money to give nobody else. And until we are in a fiscally responsible place, I think every dime, every penny should be accounted for. I think that people should not be able to drive vehicles home. I think we should look at gas cards and everything else. I think we should look at vehicle usage. I think we should look at people who are running vehicles when they're not being operable. Every little bit counts. Just being honest. When you're seeing city vehicles from here to South Bend, from here to Kalamazoo, wherever, I think that that's misuse of company property. So if we don't get a hold of it, we'll be sitting here with Tony Saunders. We'll be sitting here with a Joe Harris. We'll be sitting here with somebody who won't tell y'all what to do with the money, because we're not going to be in compliance with money and we'll be broke soon. So my suggestion to this committee is that we do get a hold on it. We do get a rein on it. And we do make sure that what is budgeted is what's spent, and that what we're spending is what we're spending on.
Right.
And I'll say this, it hurt my heart during the Blossom Time Parade to see how high the grass was down there. The grass was so high, I seen a man had a little dog. The dog sat down, you could hardly even see the dog. And I'm not being funny, it was true. I mean, I didn't want to step in the grass. You got kids that were sitting in the grass and everything else. Grass was super high. And then to hear grass cutters talk about they want to get double for cutting and all this other kind of stuff with the grass is high. We have to be wise and spend our money. Public Works has to get out and they have to do a job. We need to talk to KPEP, we need to talk to the county, we need to talk to whoever we can to get assistance to help us with what this tragedy that we're in for us fiscally. Until people start paying money, we're going to be out of money. And it behooves us to get to it. And I'm hearing Commissioner Henry's sentiments that a lot of times we're saying we have a budget, but some things that we're spending money on, we do need to look back at telecommunications. we do need to look back at our internet bills. We do need to look back at how much we spend on vehicles. And what's happening to these vehicles, man? What about insurance? You know, we get wash bills all the time when somebody got in a car accident, somebody had something happen, and we never get a report on what happened to the vehicle. But yet we're paying thousands of dollars to get stuff replaced. And we never hear anything back. So through the chair, I would ask of this body and the city manager, two things. One, I already talked about it, is that when somebody is going on vacation, they need to report to the city manager that they're going on vacation. They need to report to the human resources or something different. But if they're going on vacation, and I don't care what position they hold, they need to report to the city manager. Because people are saying they got thousands of hours of vacation, but yet you don't never see them in the building. All right? That's number one. Number two, if somebody calls off work and don't take vacation, it still needs to be reported to the city manager. Unless they're doing FMLA or whatever they're gonna do to make sure that they're in compliance to what's happening. Because people are saying they got thousands of hours of vacation, but you never see them here. And I wanna go back, if possible, to find out these people's here. So we gave a whole lot of people hazard pay that wasn't even here. That wasn't even working in the building. How the heck you get hazard pay and you weren't even showing up to work? That's the city residents, taxpayers' dollars that have come to this building, and we seem to circumvent it the way we want to circumvent it. And that time is up. Because if not, you'll be sitting up here with no cell phone, somebody telling y'all can share the meeting and you can't just open it and close it. I've been through that. We ran out of money. So handle it how you want to handle it. But those are suggestions. Personnel and finance, and if somebody's taking vacation, they should not be getting paid a normal wage. They should come off of their vacation. And if they're doing something different, then the city manager needs to know, so we can rectify it like that and be done with it. And people should not be driving vehicles outside of Benton Harbor unless it's for a city reason. Because every dime of gas is being paid for by the city residents. I'm serious about it. You see cars running all day long, nobody's sitting there. That's gas.
City manager wants to speak on
I'd like to piggyback on what he's saying, because I absolutely agree. We have to look at all of these things and bring this thing back in line. And it is a lot of work. Quite honestly, a disproportionate, but an absolutely necessary amount of time in this past few weeks has been allocated to dealing with Eagle and their water plant. That's the biggest draw we got on general fund. And to get this thing under control, not only have we got to look at transportation, the cars. I put a freeze on this enterprise contract. I told them I don't want anything added to it or sold off of anything without my knowing what's going on and approving of it. We're going to be looking at the gas and what we're having to pay for it. We're using the current system we have as opposed to other alternatives and all of it. But at the same time, I've got to also get done what needs to be done for us to be able to finish this budget, because we are running out of time. And I'm putting policies in place, trying to address a lot of these issues. But Because see, you got a process that's been going on here for years now, and every time you start to deal with a situation, there's a meeting with the union you gotta do, and you gotta, and on and on and on, and we're gonna deal with some of this stuff. But we have to deal with it in the process that's available to us.
Thank you, President, for your, result. Go ahead, Mr. Governor.
When we find out who's doing these things, there are gonna be criminal charges. I'm asking that because if it was any of us, that's what would happen. That was a question.
I
Answer was
confer to the
good.
city manager.
Okay,
And the answer is simple. If it's a criminal offense, then it gets dealt with as a crime. If it's not, and it's a civil infraction, it gets dealt with that way.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Did we resolve our budget
The amendment,
schedule and the amendment of,
yeah, well, as soon as I get the information from,
he brought his charter to read it to us. So whatever it is, let's do it, because doing nothing is just not acceptable. That's what brought me down.
go ahead, city manager.
And my answer is we're not doing nothing. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had time set aside for working on part of it, and then so this is got a cemetery board meeting at 1. So with the cemetery board meeting, and I've spent this entire day putting together for the budget all of the different grants that we have that are active that may have funds drawn on them in this coming fiscal year between July 1 to June 30. It's probably more than this city's ever had. But I need to go through them one by one and make sure that they're all in there. We will get this done.
Yeah.
And next year we can worry about making sure we hopefully able to comply to the schedule. But I mean, you all know what happened. This is no secret. I got the situation handed to me starting back in February, and I've been doing 7 days a week since then, trying to keep this thing together.
Yeah, to keep us on schedule, we still can have a special meeting to make things happen. But Commissioner,
Thank you. Chair. It's been going on, what, for years? For the last past 4, anyway, of asking for the budget on time, which should be February. So it should have been prepared when he stepped up. So that we can start examining it and looking at it. And for one thing, I'm grateful for, I heard Pro Tem Seats mention at a meeting recently. If it had not been for the marijuana dollars that come in, the cannabis dollars, we'd be in trouble right by now. Big trouble.
thanks to.
I'm seeing these big trucks ride up and down our streets. They're coming to the community, delivering beer, hot chips, all that. They're workers. They're employees of somebody's company. Are they being taxed like everybody else? Like all other employees, we have an income tax that we put on employees that work and the residents that are paying even more to ride down our streets so that we can fix them, keep them repaired. We have this big PGA going on. Can we get we never did get anything on the amount that we received from the last PGA, especially the big top winner. But we have a lot of people that are employed by the PGA. I mean, it's no more than fair that everybody pay their fair share. Am I right or am I wrong? Because we're looking at something now financially, because that $9 million didn't last long, and we didn't get a chance to really do anything for the citizens but help them with their water bill, and that was unfair because they couldn't even drink it. I'm looking at the armory down here. Have you saw the top of it lately? It's steadily lifting. the roof. It's ridiculous. The way we just let things just subside, just sit, instead of addressing it in some manner, because if somebody had got up there and put them big boulders down, it wouldn't be lifting the way that it is, which would cost us even more. Now, either we're going to utilize our city asset or turn it over to somebody else that can. I know that's probably the greatest plan for somebody, which is why it's still sitting. But I don't think Ben Harper's gonna allow that to happen, so we might as well get on the ball and fix it. And it should be not boxing, but something that can be done to make it sustainable. Bring in some funds that can pay the bills, some type of programs for the whole community, not just somebody boxing, the way it stank like socks and feet and must,
Thank you, Commissioner.
but community events. I'm not finished, sir.
That's good.
Yeah.
If I may. But it can wait, because the main thing that I wanted to address was those big trucks that are employees of some company and the others work in the PGA. And prior to all that, I think at a meeting last month, or was it the month before? Ms. Galladay, I was hoping that she was here, but she probably was first and left. But you made the statement that she was gonna be very busy because there was a lack. There was a big lack in somebody doing their job. I don't know whose it was, but to get the ones that have been already working in the community, paper signed so that they could pay. And look, it's a lot of people haven't been paying their taxes with some companies and they aren't aware of it. Whose responsibility is that? We can't sit back and do nothing. And we can sit back and do nothing. But we went through that. All we could do was call a meeting and end it. Remember that?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, next we're moving on. Unfinished business is the CHIPS and Science Act that we had on there. We've been having it on there since I learned about the CHIPS and Science Act. I know interim city manager been putting out letters to different companies. And, any results, anything? I know.
Nothing yet, but you are probably aware that it is still very, very active, especially in this political season. If I recall correctly, this morning on the news, the president was there. Well, I think it started with him talking about the tariff that he's putting on automobiles and other items coming from China.
Yeah.
And the efforts to create the different electronic components and so forth here in this country. The federal government has put a great deal of money into trying to get that activity going here in our own country, partly in response to the defense needs of this country. Because as he stated numerous times, if conflict were to break out with China, and we're buying all of our ships from China, where are we gonna go? So they're working on that, and that presents opportunities for us. Now, I am aware that there has been some serious interest in the Midwest. There is a huge wafer plant going into Indiana. There's one going in Wisconsin. There's been some discussion about doing something similar here in Michigan, except that Michigan appears to have a tax that the other states don't have. And it's my understanding there's discussion going on at the Michigan legislature about how to even the playing field so that we can get those kind of facilities here in Michigan. And were we to succeed in getting one here in Michigan, whether it's in the city or in the township, they do use a tremendous amount of water and power. And hopefully we would be able to work something out where we could begin to sell more of our water. Even if we sold it wholesale, it would still help a great deal with the problem that we have.
Thank you. To the new business, we have a resolution authorizing the application and implementation of Michigan Shared Streets and Space Grants.
I think it'd be good. I'd like to have Joel give a brief overview on that.
So I'm Joelle with Evermark Consultants, and there's a grant opportunity available to the city. So I just wanted to present what it is and what the proposed project is.
Okay.
So MDOT has this one-time opportunity to spend money to help communities improve public spaces and connectivity between public spaces for quick build projects, ready to go, get them out there, get them done, improve accessibility to people, residents. So the maximum grant amount is $200,000. There's no match. So just seems like an opportunity the city should apply for. The thinking for the project was to pick sidewalks along Empire between the high school and Broadway, so that there would be great connectivity between the high school and Broadway Park, and just kind of just storefronts and stuff along the way, and then even down towards the river. And so putting in ADA ramps, widening sidewalks where we can, and just making it a better pedestrian access across that route is what we were thinking. And then the distance, the amount of sidewalks, it would just be up till the maximum grant is 200,000 and we can max it out. So that's kind of how we were approaching it. So it's due June 7th. And so I just wanted to present it as an opportunity and give feedback and see if they are okay with applying.
Thank you. Any questions?
We should do it.
Questions? Police, you have anything to say about the grant?
I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
We need it.
Need it. Free money. Commissioner Henry.
I'm sorry, can you tell me where that project starts and ends?
So we're looking at the Colfax to Broadway stretch on Empire. So, yeah. If we could squeeze it any more, we'll add more, but that's kind of what we think the dollars
So
will
on
do.
both sides of the street?
The worst is on the south side, so we're gonna focus on that, and then we're looking at some of the north side, there's some bad patches there that we would fix, so trying to do as much as we can.
Have you-
with that money.
Have you ever went over on McCord where the little kids walk? Have you ever went over there and saw how the sidewalks look over there? And I just keep asking myself, how is the priority? Where's the priority for human infrastructure when we have our middle schools sitting together and the street and the sidewalks are horrible? So I think we deserve Broadway, Empire done, but if you not looking at our kids, the vulnerable ones, as priority, just brings it to my attention, bring it to your attention. Evermark makes the determinations about what gets done in Benton Harbor, and we don't give them a second chance. Once you approve it,
No,
once you approve it, but we don't give them a second question about anything. We just say, nah, 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 nah. But when you leave here, go ride down McCord Street and look at the sidewalks on Britton and McCord and tell me what you think.
You were saying something?
I appreciate that input. We will look at Britton and McCord as we start to go through this year's program. But, I think we've got to come around to understanding something, that everybody has opinions and everybody's opinion is important. But when it's all said and done, under this form of government, somebody has to make a decision. And that's the seat that I'm sitting in right now. Somebody else was in that seat and made the decisions before me. I can't undo or be responsible for what was done when somebody else was in the seat. But as I'm doing it now, no, Avonmarsh doesn't make the decision. They make recommendations. We sit down and discuss their recommendations and what my preferences are in terms of priorities. Because I do have a plan,
Did
whether
you
you
go on
realize
McCord
it or
and
not.
look?
I go on McCord almost 2
Then
or 3 times a week.
you already know that.
Yes, I already
All
know.
right then.
All right, but I think this is important
Yes.
to do with this particular grant. And I'll go further and say that we are continuing the effort that I began putting forth shortly after getting on board here, of trying to go after as many of these grants as we can while that money is there, to do as much for this city as we can. We're not gonna get everything done. Everybody's not going to agree with everything that we get done.
Right.
But when it's all said and done and added up, this city's gonna be better off than it was before. And we will try our best to listen to your recommendations and anybody else's that we hear. And then we'll evaluate what we're dealing with and why we're doing it and go from there.
Thank you.
Then why is that particular area chosen to do for this grant? Since we have a reasoning to do things, tell me so I'll be on board.
Janelle?
So the goal behind the grant is to connect the community spaces as best as you can with continuity. And so the Broadway Park and the high school area are large community spaces. So that was like the best fit for the grant.
Does the grant say that we couldn't take care of the kids on McCord? I mean, what makes the grant say that this is the area that we take care of?
Because
It's
of the
really more
community
about
space.
connecting spaces that are public than just like repairing sidewalks. And so like the fact that the Broadway Park is one of the connection spots, and the high school is another, with like all of its, football field and recreation opportunities. That was like the fit.
Is that in the grant? I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out who, it is in the grant.
Yeah, so that's.
Can you send that to me, please?
Yeah, so yeah. I can
Thank
send
you.
the information.
So I'll read it and then I have a good understanding, and that's all I need, Chair.
Thank
Is a
you.
good understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Thank you, Commissioner Henry. Thank you, Janelle. We move this forward?
Yep.
Thank you. Consensus is good. I think that's it for tonight. Thanks for your participation. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Felicia, for your hard work and participation. Thank you, City Manager.